Fire is a new action comedy film from director Ben Wheatley that stars Brie Larson, Cillian Murphy, Armie Hammer, Sharlto Copley, Jack Rayner, among others. This film takes place in 1978 at a deserted warehouse. You have a group of arms dealers and a group of arms buyers, and the tensions are actually surprisingly high here. One thing leads to another. Some people don't get along, they grab guns and decide, we're gonna shoot you all, and that's the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie is just this long shootout scene at this warehouse, people ducking for cover and all that. When I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was really only expecting a fun action film with some comedic characters, but what really got me was that I kept hearing a certain line from a couple critics, but it was basically along the lines of, this script feels like something Tarantino would have written. So that made me think like, okay, the trailer makes it seem like just a silly action movie, but maybe there's something more to this plot, because they're saying it feels like Tarantino would have written something like this. Maybe there's something here that makes this idea have more potential to it. Maybe there's something more that makes it a more unique experience. And this is definitely a fun film. There are a couple instances where I was like, okay, the action's getting a little old, but then at that exact moment, a character would start to do something or act in a certain way that would change up the action scene a bit and keep it going and keeping you interested. After the first 30 minutes of this film, this movie is pretty much non-stop action with a couple breaks here and there, and I'd say Ben Wheatley did a pretty good job of directing this. Gun sound effects are really great in this movie because you can actually feel it when people get shot at certain points. The cinematography always had the action in focus. You're never really confused about what's going on. You always know where everyone's at. And also the actors are at the top of their game here. They're all doing a really good job. So as far as the action goes, this film succeeded. However, as far as this being something Tarantino would have written, sorry, I don't buy that. This movie just feels like they had an idea for a movie all about this shootout, and as soon as they came up with the idea, instead of creating any form of substance or having the characters actually mean something, maybe there's something more to them, they just made the movie with just the idea in mind. Like, we're gonna have a group of people and they're gonna shoot each other. The only reason I can really think of that people would actually compare this to something Tarantino would have written is because it's kind of like Reservoir Dogs meets the Django Unchained Candyland shootout. They're in a confined space, there's lots of guns being fired, lots of blood going on everywhere, but in those two movies there's substance going on, at least. In Reservoir Dogs, it's not really about action, it's about the characters. In Django Unchained, sure, the shootout at Candyland is a great sequence, but it's all about the characters there. You care about that action scene because of something that happened prior to that. And you're not just into it because the characters are fun to watch, you're into it because you're interested in the story. In this movie, there's really nothing to each character. They're all really just a bunch of idiots, really. This movie had an opening 30 minutes that could have set up the characters in a way where you're interested, you want to see how the movie unfolds with them, you want to see them survive when the action starts, but they really don't do it well. All they set up in that 30 minutes is just, we're the arms buyers, and those are the armed dealers, we're gonna meet with them, uh-oh, things aren't going right, bam, bam, bam! A stronger motivation for why these characters want to actually get in a shootout with each other would actually get you more interested in the film. Knowing these characters a bit more makes you want these characters to survive anything that happens to them. And that's another flaw with this movie. The actual reason why they get into a shootout is really immature. It just made me think, I feel like in real life, these people would just act more mature than this, and any situation that was going on between only one person from each group, they can just kick them out and just let them continue on with the meeting. But no, they need the movie to happen. It was so immature and just so nonsensical that for the first 5 minutes of the sequence, I couldn't get involved in the action. I was just thinking, why is this happening? You have no reason to do this right now. And this is why substance could have actually helped this movie. If you care about the characters, if they actually worked with more motivation other than, this guy doesn't like this guy, then that actually would have created a better experience for the audience. And substance really could have helped the characters too if you understand where each person is coming from and you understand their motivation, but they don't do that either. For example, Cillian Murphy is supposedly the main character, and sure, Cillian Murphy is a great actor and he's doing fine here. It's just that there's really nothing to his character other than he's an arms buyer and he's kind of crushing on Brie Larson a bit. And speaking of Brie Larson, same thing as Cillian Murphy. She's doing a fine job, sure, she's a good actress, but there really isn't much to her character, at least until the last 5 minutes. At that point, they actually decide, alright, let's reveal something here about her, and you're just thinking, man, I wish there was more character like you've given me right here with the rest of the film. But instead they just decide, at the last 5 minutes when we're wrapping up, let's reveal something character-wise now. And that's not helpful with the experience. However, as much as the character aspect actually did let me down, there are two standout performances in this film that, even though the characters aren't really that well written, their performances actually carry it. One of them being Armie Hammer. He's kind of the guy who's trying to get both groups to get along, so when guns are actually firing and he's firing some guns, he's trying to talk in a peaceful manner, trying to resolve this just with words. He actually had me cracking up a lot in this film. And that's another thing I should mention, is that besides the two performances I'm about to mention, the comedy aspect really wasn't that good. There's two characters too that I guess were supposed to be a little comedic, and they didn't really make me laugh. They're actually on the borderline annoying area. And then you have this guy who is the best part of this film, Sharlto Copley, and I might sound like a broken record because of my Hardcore Henry review, another movie sold basically off of great action and no story substance whatsoever. Sharlto Copley was the best part of that, and he's the best part of this movie too. He's funny, and even though they didn't really explore his character, what he's all about, his performance actually made you fascinated by him. At least that was me. Because of Sharlto Copley's presentation, you actually are more interested in him when the camera pans over to him. I wish actually the movie focused on him a little bit more than Cillian Murphy, because at least there's something there with Sharlto Copley and you can pick it up through his presentation. Are there things to enjoy about Free Fire? Yeah, sure. But I just can't see myself watching this movie again because of those certain things I enjoyed, because there's really no substance that wants me to watch this movie again. The setup for the shootout doesn't work, the characters are barely explored, and you're not interested in them for the most part. The dialogue at times is really repetitious. People will like get behind a corner, fire a gun, say a bad word, someone else will dodge the bullet and say another bad word in response, fire gun. There's a lot of swearing in this movie, and I'm not against swearing at all, it's just that it really is just, we can swear, so let's write it in. This is something Tarantino does, right? Lots of bad words. There are a couple of moments where the action gets a little old, but as I mentioned earlier, the director does enough new things with the story action-wise to keep you interested in, okay, how's this character going to get out of this situation? You may not be fully attached to the character, but the actors you can't say are doing a bad job. They're entertaining enough to get you interested in the rest of the action sequence. I'm gonna give Free Fire a B-. It's not a movie that I can see myself ever watching again. In fact, it's not a movie I can see myself thinking about like in the next coming weeks or whatever, but it is well directed enough for a good first time watch, and you can watch it once and be like, alright, I'm glad I watched that just to see how the director directed the action, and it is entertaining enough, but there's really nothing that'll bring you back to it. But if you've seen Free Fire, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.